evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Howling About Entertainment on the Jake D channel. So glad to have everybody here today. If you are a new viewer, want to send you a hearty welcome and thank you. I know that Gary at Nerdrotic was kind enough to provide us a shout out for the channel Friday evening, and apparently another one to come next week. So by God, if this is your first time here, we sure do as hell appreciate you. Let's start out really quick by going around the horn and saying hello to the guys. Draco Argentis, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon to you, sir, and it is good to be here with all these excellent people on this panel howling about some entertainment tonight.
Yes, sir. Fenrir the Ice Wolf, how are you, sir?
I'm fine. Greetings, ladies and gents. It's always fun to be with these fine gentlemen in these crazy chats.
Excellent. And the man, the one, the only Redshirt, just another Redshirt.
Hello, and hi, everybody in the chat. Hi to all the folks else, the rest of the folks on the panel. This one's going to be a good discussion, I think.
You betcha. And you guys know him. If you don't, you should. We love him. He is our hero. Hailing out of the South, Vigilante Williamson.
So Robert's in the chat. I see him there. Are you ready, Robert? Because he's good on my channel. All right. Vigilante Williamson here on another episode howling about entertainment with Jake D and the boys, and I'm happy to be here. How's everybody doing it?
Oh man, I'll tell you, it's a lovely day here in Texas. I'm sure Redshirt can agree with that. Although just yesterday I was freezing, my nuts off, and so I've been fortunate. Unlike our good buddy Redshirt, I did not have any power or water issues at my place. But we are back to seasonable weather here in Texas. Thank goodness.
How odd.
So Redshirt, now your experience was a little different from mine, as I recall.
Just a bit. Early last Sunday, the power went out while we were asleep, and I woke up to a much colder house. And by 5 o'clock that day, it was snowing, and the roads were a mess. And the house had gone below 60 degrees, and we bailed out for a hotel in the city for several days, and then came back in, and the power was on, and everything was fine. And knock on wood, thankfully, nothing broke, nothing froze. But yeah, we had it was a bit different here. We actually had one day where the post office refused to deliver our mail.
Oh, wow.
You only had one day like that?
Only one day that. Well, I don't know how many days they refused to, but I got the text message that they couldn't deliver this one day, and I'm like, wow.
Rain nor snow nor sleet, no fuck this.
Exactly.
That's right.
You haven't seen the darn roads around here.
Oh man. They were definitely pretty nasty. So if you're not from the southern U.S., you don't really understand. We had 2 days of ice storms, which is basically it rains and then it freezes immediately when it hits the ground, and it makes for really pretty trees when they're lit up by a light at night. But it makes for really nasty road conditions. And then you dump 6 inches of snow on top of that and you stay below freezing for a week. It's not fun. And because it's Texas and this doesn't happen, there's no such thing as a snowplow. They don't have road salt. They don't have gravel. They don't have any of the goo that they put down in Denver. So it gets really bad.
Yep. And everybody here with 4-wheel drive thinks they can do 80 because they have 4-wheel drive.
Yes.
You just try and stay out of their way. Yeah, just try and stay out of their way.
All right, man. Before we get into it, let's say a quick hello to see who is here with us today. All right, the great Lord Thoth. I know he wasn't able to join the panel today because he is spending some time with Lady Thoth, but glad to have you here in the chat, my friend. Man of War, the neighbor of the beast. Good to see you, sir. and Rajesh Taylor. Very good to see you. I did email you back this afternoon. I am looking forward to setting that up. We're gonna do some movie talks. It's gonna be good. And yes, Robert from the who's joining us from the Vigilante Williamson channel. Good to have you, my friend. All right. Let's see who else skipping through the chat. Mary G, good to see you. Good to see you. And the one, the only, our crazy Croatian sentient dildo. Always good to have you here. And so I hope I say this right. Joachim Stark, good to have you, buddy. All right. So, clobbering times as well. Good to see you, sir. Mary G says her friend that works at the post office was off for 4 days. No mail at all. And also joining us, Keck44. All right, so the big topic of the day is, of course, the Gina Carano interview that aired on the Ben Shapiro YouTube channel today, or on the Daily Wire website yesterday, if you were a member. And we are going to spend most of the time today talking about the Carano interview. But before we get to that, there's a piece that hits really, really deep at home in the heart for me, being from Central Texas, and I'm sure Redshirt will agree to that. And that is Marina Sirtis, who was
talking about this. This pissed me off as well.
Once a childhood crush of mine, but I'm not going to pretend that she wasn't a very, very cute lady on TNG. Now has clearly turned into a bitter, nasty, angry old lady who's very upset that her best assets are between her belly button these days. So, without further ado, man, we're going to go over this article from heavy.com. From heavy.com. Celebs and fans drag Marina Sirtis for her tweets about Texas. And something I want to call out on this before we really get into the interview. So I want everybody to take a quick peek at the author of this article. Now, I grant you, I'm making assumptions based on appearance. I'll say that up front. But this does not particularly look like a right-wing demagogue to me. What do you guys think?
And there's, you know what? There's a Caitlin Board. What's her name? There's a Caitlin. She looks like, if you looked at her, you would think she was SJW, but she's the opposite. So that does happen. But no. And I was going to say, you talked about Marina Sirtis not necessarily having the same looks that she once did. I mean, the wall is Rocky Marciano. No L's, completely undefeated. And, you know, success has defeated you, Marina Sirtis. And before we get into it, maybe we would have got into it. There were other states that also had power outages.
Yes, there were.
Like Oregon, which is a very blue state, if that matters, because it doesn't, because we're all humans. And also, was it Oklahoma? I think there was a few other states.
Yeah, Oklahoma did. Oklahoma had issues.
Yeah. So like,
someone help me out. There was another southern state. I don't remember if it was Louisiana, Arkansas, or
Louisiana had
Alabama.
issues.
Louisiana, yeah. But I mean, there are other places that had issues that weren't Texas. And I mean, as has been reported, if you pay attention to the whole election thing, if this matters, it doesn't matter. But Texas has gone a lot more blue, so it's not like what I'm trying to say is, even if you thought her premise made any sense, it doesn't. It falls apart completely because weather. I'm not sure if she's been on Earth, and she's looking at her picture, it doesn't look like she's from Earth, but on Earth there's weather, and sometimes it can hit a place and cause power outages. I'm from Michigan. Anyone who remembers maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we had the worst winter in my lifetime, to the point where it snowed over, like the entire lakes were frozen. You could walk to Canada. You got more snow in Michigan than Alaska did. It was insane. And even though our infrastructure was prepared, we have snow plows, salt trucks, and everything, there were times where it got so bad that no amount of snow, they couldn't do anything. It was just so overwhelming.
The ice storm right after Christmas.
Yeah, this is an interesting comment from Rajesh. Germany had to import energy from Poland, Russia, and France last week. The whole country known for its world-class engineers, and certainly never recently been accused of not being all about going green. that is certainly something that Germany is fully on board with. And actually, frankly, so is Texas. When this power outage hit in Texas, 43% of our energy was coming from wind farms the day before the storm hit. So,
wow.
Do you know how much was coming from wind farms after the storm hit?
I'm guessing it's not as high as 43%.
8%.
I'm surprised it was that high. I thought you were going to say 0. Yeah, I thought you were going to say 0%.
No, it went to 8%, but that destabilized the grid.
Yeah. It was. It was. I mean, it was a crazy situation. What you got to remember about this storm is even fucking Mexico got snowed on around Brownsville, Texas. Okay, Brownsville, Texas is literally on the border. It's practically the most southern part of the state. Brownsville and across the Mexican border even got snowed on. That's how insane this storm was.
Yeah.
And so Marina, though, she, well, like I said, when I was a kid, I had a real serious crush on this lady. But, TNG, I mean, she was wonderful as Deanna Troi back in the day, but she just, she couldn't resist her bad takes. As we all know, she played Troy on The Next Generation, and she tweeted her thoughts about the Texas blackouts, specifically saying, "Don't get me wrong, my heart bleeds for what Texans are going through right now, but the mean girl in me says you get the government you deserve." And they voted for Republicans across the board for the last 20 years. Wow.
How can they think this is a good thing to say? I mean, do none of these people just shut up for a second, listen or read what they're going to send, and just think, maybe this is not a good thing to send out?
No, they don't. All evidence to the support of it.
Yeah, mean girl. Bitch, you're like 60. You remind everyone of their grandmother. You're not a mean girl anymore. What the hell are you talking about?
I've got to give Marina Sirtis props because she's a better actor than I gave her credit for. Because I would say that this is the real Marina Sirtis. And if we remember, Counselor Troy was an empath. And I bought that.
She definitely does not seem to be an exemplary example of empathy in this tweet. And
no.
Coming from heavy.com, even the fact that they're covering this in the way they did, I'm rather blown away. What the author says, Robin, she says the tweet elicited a deluge of negative responses from other celebs, her fans, and especially Texans.
Besides, when Redshirt, what you originally said about, or what was said about crushes and things like that, it wasn't necessarily acting, it was hypnosis in full.
Yes. Yeah.
You weren't concerned with her empathy as much as you were some.
Well, she did have a nice pair of assets. That's true. But
milk is going bad.
Rajesh says here, and again, this really should put it into context for people. It snowed in Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, and yes, Saudi Arabia.
Hey, global warming.
He tried to drop a link to it, but Rajesh, because you don't have a wrench, it doesn't let you drop the link in. But I also saw that picture of camels in the snow. And of Arabs making snowballs. It was, I had that's how widespread this crazy weather was.
Mother Nature, unless it was manipulated with, which we don't know, but Mother Nature is a motherfucker. You can't just say, sometimes there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
And that's just it. That's the way it is. Because Oregon, again, has power outages, and that's a place that gets snow on a regular basis. So sometimes snowstorms are just really fucking bad. And that's the answer. It's not a political thing. Not like California's ever had power outages or anything like that.
No, never once. Not at all.
I remember back in the 1990s, I went skiing in Alberta, Canada. And on the way from Calgary to the Rockies to the west, we saw a public service type road sign that said, "Dress to survive, not just to arrive." And you get halfway between Alberta and the mountains, and it looks a lot like Central Texas. In other words, it's flat. And there's nothing to the horizon except maybe a tree or a building every once in a great while. And yeah, I could see coming up, you get in trouble with a car out in the middle of there, your chances of having cell phone service were not very good. And you better have your emergency stuff in the trunk ready to go, because you may be there a while. And that's what people. It's convenient to forget. It's just convenient to forget that. Sometimes weather just shuts everything down.
Yeah, we're humans. 150 years ago, we had no way to stop this shit at all. We were just screwed. Like we take for granted how good we have it. This entire generation, from a technological standpoint, that we can even think to deal with this type of weather. It's like. No,
we don't think to deal with this type of weather. We've been so you hit on it and you went away from it. The fact that 150 years ago people dealt with it on a regular basis. People thought of dressing to survive rather than to arrive, because that was what they did back then. We have been so inert about thinking we've got heat, we've got power, we've got things that can control this stuff. But if we do not think about the 1 in 150 year storm that blows through and wipes out a bunch of bearings and a bunch of wind engines, you don't handle it well, and everybody is going to pay the cost from it. And then some people who don't think about that all the time say stupid shit because they're being emotional rather than logical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's
very
a little bit of what we got going on here.
Yes.
Yeah, this was, man, I'll tell you what, this thing was, the last time we had recorded weather like this in Texas was literally 1899. Like, no shit.
Oh, wow. So it's literally 199.
On
storm of the century, my friends.
Yeah, on Tuesday, a meteorologist, I saw this on Facebook, he put out a tweet or something that wound up on Facebook, and he showed a map, and every single county in Texas was highlighted. He said every county in Texas is currently under a winter storm warning. He said that's unprecedented. He says we will be talking about this for years.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this was that big a deal. Nobody alive today remembers anything like this in Texas.
Yeah, it's never happened in living memory.
Right.
Yeah, Ascension Dildo, that's right. 2021 is off to a great start.
Just imagine
I'm beginning to think that people that warned us that 2020 was a dress rehearsal might have been right.
Yeah, and this is just a dress rehearsal for 2022.
Hey,
I'm seriously just waiting for the aliens or the wizards to show up and kill everything.
I think the aliens are already here.
We got through 2020 and we finished Jumanji, which was excellent. Congratulations, we made it. Unfortunately, in 2021, we were just welcomed to the Oregon Trail.
Yeah. That's what it's looking like, yeah.
Watch out, V-Dub. You're going to die of dysentery before you get across the Mississippi River, brother.
I hope not. Yeah, because I'm trying to make it to Texas. Speaking of vigilantes, shout out to Vigilant Vigilante. There's another vigilante in the chat, and I just got
I was going to highlight that. Vigilant Vigilante, welcome to you.
I'm good to see my people are also supporting me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the V-Dub chats.
Yeah.
Indeed, man. So
she doubled down.
Oh, she doubled and tripled down. She goes on, people are suffering because of lack of preparedness by the Republicans in Texas. My words are not making people suffer. The politicians are. And then somebody tried to suggest to her it wasn't about that. And she said, wrong, it's a Republican issue. Except the thing is that the grid in Texas is run by a board called ERCOT, which we're an independent grid here in Texas from the rest of the states. A lot of that has to do with desire for Texas. It's still living strong in the Texan spirit, let me tell you. And
the great nation of Texas.
Yes, so ERCOT is a completely independent board, and while power generation in Texas is indeed a utility with a limited amount of government oversight, it's actually one of the most deregulated energy industries in the entire country. And just like I can actually pick my power supplier. I have more than one option who to get my power from, which most people, you hear that and you say, the fuck? So no, really, I can get my power from more than one company here, which largely generates competitive pricing and low electric bills, which is great. But that's, none of that had to do with a lack of Republican preparedness. The grid is not run by the government here. I mean, you can make arguments all you want about maybe, the companies or the overseeing board didn't do a good job of preparedness, but it's got nothing to do with Republicans or Democrats, libertarians, any of that shit. It just doesn't.
Had to do with a once in 100-year storm that never happened. So how do you prepare for that when you have to put that much more money into firming up infrastructure? And if you have to do money for something that is only going to happen once in 100 years, you probably say, we'll knock that bridge down when we come to it.
Now, here's the money tweet, though. This one right here, front and center. I repeat, there has been no Democrat in the state legislature since 1994. Okay,
what about Oregon, though, Marina? What about Oregon? Even if that's true, I don't know if that's true or not. I'm sure
it's not true.
But like, what about Oregon? Like, explain why did Oregon, again, a state that is used to having winter storms, why couldn't it do that? Because we're human beings on Earth, and we should be lucky we can do any goddamn thing. And sometimes sometimes Mother Nature just punches back, and that's just how it goes. It's like there's no logic to what she's saying.
Seriously.
I mean,
seriously, we are insects, and nature's pretty much the invisible hand that's going to kill us all if we just don't get ready for it. There's no controlling it. There's no stopping it. We're all screwed.
Jake D, I can send you this link if you want, but I can tell you I've been looking at articles, and I had heard this, and I've now found an article from the Austin American Statesman that Sally Tallberg, the chairwoman of ERCOT's board of directors, is a former state utility regulator who lives in Michigan.
Yes.
And vice chairman Peter Crampton is a professor of economics at the University of Cologne in Germany and the University of Maryland. His LinkedIn profile lists his location as Del Mar, California.
Yes. Basically, the entire board is out of state. You're absolutely correct. So Ascension Dildo calls out that can't be true. Her statement that there's no Democrat in the state legislature. Yes, it's absolutely completely untrue. I personally am currently represented by a Democrat in the state legislature and a Republican in the state Senate, among various other offices that represent my area. So it's just the lunacy of where she's going here. She's just so off the rails that you can't even begin to quantify how fucking crazy this is.
Well, we all can take solace knowing that one day her cats will eat her body. One day, years from now, her cats will eat her, and we won't have to remember.
Most of California is literally hell by now.
The circle of life.
It is a circle of life.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, Rajesh, she doesn't seem to want to comment on what's been going on with Californian power. But, this, it was really personal to me because I'm in Texas. And I grant you that I have adopted this state, but I have adopted it wholeheartedly. And I am absolutely a Texan. And I don't vote like a Coloradan or a Californian or an Illinoisan. Although to be fair, I don't vote like most Texans either. So I want even more freedom than most Texans do. So,
question: if I'm wrong, prove me wrong right now. But I can't be the only one who thinks that California would be the perfect stage for Cyberpunk 20 for Cyberpunk. I mean, let's be honest. It's a apocalyptic city. It already exists. They don't have to actually make much more new designs. It worked, right?
Well, there was a joke when Cyberpunk came out. I was like, why are they making this this documentary on Los Angeles?
Yes.
I made that joke. That was me.
Did you? Okay, there you go. I heard other people say similar stuff like, "Oh man, this is just San Francisco 2077" and stuff like that. So
yeah. 100-year winter storm cycle, yes, and then we also hit a bad down cycle of the sun at the same time. It was a perfect storm to just completely fuck us in Texas, pretty much.
Yeah, South Park saw this coming. They literally saw this coming. Everyone in California, from San Francisco to everything else, literally just smells their own farts and thinks they're superior to everyone. Now look at them. Now look at them right now.
Yeah, exactly, Iron Caster. I'm right there with you, brother. My shotgun needs to own a 9, which needs to own a Derringer. That's kind of the best way to approach gun ownership. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's just this is so indicative of what the social media has done to celebrity overall, right? Like, we get to see who these idiots are now.
yeah.
That's so fucking funny.
If I had known she was like this, I never would have been a fan.
But you want to know something? There's no way, and I've made jokes about her, and I am too fat to make jokes about anyone's looks. These are just jokes. You know what I mean? I look like a Goodyear blimp that on a damn Superman shirt. So I'm not talking about anybody like to be disparaged, but I'm sure 20, 30 years ago, she wasn't like that. You know what I mean? I joke about the cat lady thing, but she gives off a very bitter vibe, a very old and bitter vibe. And not every old person's bitter. I mean, I'm old, but like, she has a very bitterness to her. And it's like, I think that's come with age, maybe the Hollywood industry itself. I don't know, but she has a bitter vibe. So that's why I keep making these cat lady jokes.
Surrounded by nihilism. She is surrendered to being surrounded by nihilism.
You know, Anthroparian makes a great observation here. The level of smart in her tweets makes him think that she probably did some of the writing on Star Trek Picard.
It makes some sense. That show is pretty much.
It does.
I mean, I think even
improvisation on the lines.
I think a 6-year-old could write better episodes than most of the writing staff there.
Oh, dude. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't make it through episode 3. I will fully admit I did not watch the whole thing. I watched the first 3 episodes and I just said, fuck this.
I watched 4 episodes and I cried because they literally destroyed my favorite fleet captain. They destroyed Picard. I mean, no character makes sense there. Even the black one who lives in an RV of some sorts, smoking weed, doesn't make sense because, again, she was kicked out because of her superior officer. I mean, she was taking orders, so she was not responsible. So why did they fire her?
Wait, before we get to rejection, there's a character on Star Trek that is a black person in an RV that smokes weed all day.
Living down by the river.
And some other drugs, too.
Well, it's not a river, it's the desert. Matter of fact, it's the arena rocks.
What is with these woke characters all being stereotypes? Tim Drake is like a gangster, freaking the Batwoman, she's a crack dealer who lives down by the river, and of course we need a weed head in RV in the desert.
Who lives in a van down by the river, but we cannot forget that.
Yeah,
you know this, Vigilante. You said this when I was on your chat on the other night. They are truly racist. They are that
very
way.
Much are.
Oh, gee, racist or whatever. There goes the shit stream.
It's like they have this unearthly belief that no black person can actually make success coming from a good background. I mean, look at almost every single rich black person in America today. They all are rich. Some come from bad backgrounds, but most of them don't. Most of them really don't.
Yeah. It's identity politics. It's the logical end result, because if you classify everybody around you into groups by their identity, those are the characters you create.
Yeah, but this is very harmful. I mean, has any of you seen the last episode of Batwoman? They literally said to black children that they don't matter. If they're kidnapped, no one gives a shit. They're gonna die alone, even if they go to foster care. No one cares about them. literally saying this to black children.
Brutal.
Yeah. They did do that in Batwoman, straight up. Absolutely. They flat out said, like, nobody cares about kids who look like you, B-Dub.
Wow, that's fucking brutal. That's fucking brutal. I've commented how, and I don't even like calling them the left because this isn't left. This is the wokies, the SJWs, whatever you want to call them. Like whatever group they use as a shield or a weapon, they also hate. Whether it's women, women aren't allowed to dress any way they want. Women have to look a certain way. They have to be very masculine, but they'll use women as a shield all the time. And it'll be LGBTQ, and then you get the new warriors. You know what I mean? No matter what group they use as a shield, it's always like a weapon. They always disparage that group in some way. They always have a nick at that group, and it's just something I wanted to point out, and just something I just like. Geez,
I think Ginger's saying pretty much very similar argument to what you're making there, V-Dub, and so basically their argument is that the stereotypes are real, which is so fucking racist.
Yes,
and it's like
exactly.
Yep.
To quote Dave Chappelle, who are all these people who don't like chicken? Like, it's a lot of stereotypes cross culture, and then end up.
I'm gonna admit, I do like to eat chicken a lot, and as a black man, I'll admit some stereotypes are real. Some stereotypes are real, but it's because it's literally just fundamental. Everyone loves to eat chicken at insane amounts.
But I'm like Chick-fil-A in Nebraska, in the middle
Chick-fil-A,
of like the most
yes.
Chick-fil-A anywhere. It could be it doesn't matter where it is. Chick-fil-A is going to make money. No matter you put a Chick-fil-A, you'll have a line around the corner, no matter where you are in America. No matter
why is that?
I'm responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of chickens in my life.
Like certain stereotypes are just like human stereotypes, and then they get like people being late to work. Like there's a lot of people late to work. I remember, and I'm bad at being late, but I remember when I moved to like a more. I'm from Detroit, but I lived in like a rural area a lot of my life, and I realized that white people were also late to work. I was like, oh, okay. I felt like different.
Yes.
I felt like,
we too sleep in and sometimes don't think it's important to be on time. That's absolutely true. Just look at Gary at Nerdrotic. He's never on time.
Gary's got his own time zone.
Oh, is he?
He's a wizard. He always arrives professionally when he. Yeah. And I know I went off on a tangent, but I just
Draco. We'll just call you the Chicken Slayer from now on, buddy. Yeah. So vigilante though. I want to respond to this because you say you've never seen anything except for the Jar Jar Abrams movies. And
trust me, just go back. That's what I'm doing. Go back. Don't watch nothing modern. Just go back. I'm right now on season 3 of.
You're on season 3 of which one?
TNG.
Yeah. So it is worth going back and watching TOS, the original series, TNG, the Next Generation, DS9, Deep Space Nine, and then from there, the rest of the shows aren't as good, but they don't get bad until you hit CBS All Access and Discovery.
Don't forget the original cast movies. The movies from the original cast.
Yeah. I recommended.
Look, I've watched.
I recommended Star Trek 2 because it's one movie, and my attitude is: if you don't like Star Trek 2: The Wrath of Khan, Trek probably is not going to be that interesting to you because that is a fantastic movie. And then you can go anywhere you want from there.
Oh yes, yeah, and it's. Oh man, I'll tell you, it's just I don't know, man. The stereotypes and the way that they approach that, just regardless of where you're going. I mean, Marina in this article was living a stereotype of the angry, bitter lady who's seen her best days, trying to make waves in whatever way she can. Right? I mean, like she is a stereotype of the angry old cat lady. V-Dub.
Very much. And Rajesh, real quick, Rajesh said someone of Gary's member string commented at Disney 150 billion in a hole. I thought that was Warner Brothers that were 150 billion. I know the Disney like 5 or 10 billion, which is still incredible amount of money.
Yeah,
the
100
Disney took out a loan for $5 billion.
Yeah, so it's a little bit
probably more.
The 150 billion is not an inaccurate number, but it's that's what AT&T, the parent company, is in the hole. Which you got to remember about AT&T is they were originally a telecommunications company, so they're building fiber. They're the one who puts your phone in, gets you your DSL internet, and this kind of thing. And that kind of debt is actually really common in the United States in the hardwired telecommunications industry. So it's only recently that they've expanded to become an entertainment company. And part of the reason they expanded to become an entertainment company, buying Warner Brothers and shit, is to try to pay down that debt that they accumulated building the communications infrastructure. So it's a little misleading to look at the 150 billion as indicative of the entertainment company, because it really isn't.
Okay. Yep. Well, I'm glad you told me. I didn't know that. What about the Disney? How do they have a lot of debt as well? Because I didn't know that. I knew they had some debt, but I didn't know they had that much.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I used to work for CenturyLink, and CenturyLink's like 100 billion in the hole. Verizon is like 120. Don't quote me on that. Those are ballpark numbers, because it's expensive as fuck to lay the fiber. You guys have no idea how expensive that shit is.
To speak to VW, to your question, nobody knows what the actual numbers are. If you might have heard a little story about a certain whistleblower it didn't actually make the news last year. She was talking about a lot of the practices that about the multiple books. Nobody knows how far Disney really is in the hole, but they've spent the last 10 plus years in a purchasing spree by Bob Iger, and they ended with Fox and all of their subsidiary purchases. They are in an unknown pit. It's significant.
The stock price is up significantly year over year. But don't manipulate stocks. It's racist.
Well, that's the accounting foo, where the money actually is and where the value is, and that's why they were capable of doing. That's why they're capable of making the purchase on Fox.
Yeah, they've been accused by an internal whistleblower Disney has of accounting practices that probably would result in severe problems for Disney if that could be proven. Well, Jake, you remember I said 2 months ago when we were talking about the end of The Mandalorian, I said Disney is not in a position to waste money. And that was 2 months ago. I think they're in a worse situation now because California's Disneyland is still closed. Disney World is operating, but at higher operating costs with all of the things they had
limited
to paint.
Capacity.
And limited capacity. So those two parks are not the money spinners they used to be. They used to get their operating revenue out of all of their parks, and they're not now.
Yeah. So we got, now it's a funny thing here, Redshirt, to your comment, and then Ginger's response to it. It is a small world, y'all, because so did mine. Old man worked at Bell Labs too, so
shout out to AT&T employing everybody.
That is,
but to kind of segue off of that, another thing Disney has just did is put a hole into one of their few things that were making money. Well, wasn't profiting. We know it's very expensive, but Disney Plus, their flagship show, they just got rid of the biggest star, which is obviously the title track to this album of a stream, Gina Carano. Because that interview came out, and I did not watch the whole thing. I have about 20 minutes left in it, but I got through a good portion of it.
Yeah. Yes. I'm glad we segued into Disney, because we do want to spend a fair amount of time talking about the Gina Carano interview that aired on the Ben Shapiro YouTube channel. Some people caught it yesterday on the Daily Wire website. If they were members there, they got early access, and they also got to listen to a few questions that were not on the YouTube video. Just in the interest of the fact that I'll just own up, I'm not a member of the Daily Wire, so I did not hear the bonus questions. So we'll go over kind of what was in the hour that aired on the Shapiro channel, though. And so initially, I want to hear everybody's just kind of reactions to having listened to either all or the majority of that interview. So let's Redshirt, let's start with you, my friend.
Reactions. That looked like she was holding back an amazing amount of anger in that interview.
Yeah.
And it was entirely, first of all, to me, it was entirely understandable that she would be extremely angry. And she did talk about she could, walk away or bend the knee or go down swinging. And she chose to go down swinging. And I really appreciate that from her, because she said something really, really powerful. She said, people are calling me, they're reaching out to me, and they're saying, you're so brave, and I'm so afraid. She said, you should be afraid that you're being made to be afraid for what you think. That was one of the high points of that from her. She has been red-pilled. She's been woken up. She didn't want to have anything to do with any of this, but she's been forced to deal with it. And she just wanted to be able to, she just wanted to have nobody tell her what she had to do. She doesn't like bullies, and I appreciate that as well. She became, if anybody wants to say, well, Gina Carano has just become political. It's like, no, Gina Carano was forced out of a neutral stance and didn't have a choice because she didn't want to submit to bullies.
Yeah, absolutely. Fenrir, what was your reaction to the interview?
Well, I only got a chance to see half of it. I intend to finish it later. More. But from what I'm getting through all that she said, Gina Carano is a woman that has been in many physical fights. She has held up a lot, from physical beatings to literally from women who are as strong or some that are actually stronger than her, and not shed a tear, and not shed a freaking tear. But as I saw the interview, I felt as if she was literally holding up an insane amount of pain and anger, both at the same time. And this woman has taken hits to her actual face and got back up, and not with a tear in the face. You gotta admit, whatever these people did to her was really not good. It was non-humane. Disney acts as if they are the moral superiority of everything, but they are not. And this just proves it. They are nothing more than lying bullies who hide between a sheet. If you are something bad, at least admit it. No one's going to judge you for that. If you at least admit what you are, everyone's going to be okay with it. But if you constantly lie under lies and saying that you support and care for others, in reality, behind the window, you're just torturing and beating up one another. It's just an endless ocean of lies. And Gina shows that, because they don't actually care for their employees. They don't actually care for helping women or keeping them up, because she said she was bullied by other employees. So where the fuck were them when that happened?
Mm-hmm.
That's an evidence. They don't actually care. And I really hope she wins. She ever since the beginning, I saw she was neutral. She never actually truly had a political side. She was obviously going more right, because let's be honest, even the leftists of today mostly are going to the right because of the craziness. But now that she was fired for just saying what she believed in, her own beliefs, she has gone to the right side, to the completely political. Now it's their fault, because they pushed away a good person from their side. The possibility of being on their side, they pushed it away just because of their ridiculous ideal that truly is not the good side.
Fair enough. I like it, man. It's a good take. V-Dub, what do you think, brother?
Yeah. Quick thing, because I mentioned Cyborg. Cincha picked up when I was talking about, Cyborg had more testosterone in her body when she fought Gina than everyone in this panel.
They talked about that in the interview.
Yeah, I didn't get to that. Was that toward the end?
Yeah, you probably just missed it. You said you had about 20 minutes left in it, right?
Yeah.
Because
she was juiced to the gills back then. Because that's where I knew Carano was from MMA. She did Deadpool, and then obviously Mandalorian. So to kind of go off of a wrestling analogy, I'm sure no one in the chat or in the panel knows this analogy. But a few years ago, there was a guy named CM Punk who had this interview about what happened to him in WWE. medical staff, people there, and just how crazy it was there. And that's what this interview felt like. Like, yes, some of the stuff was known, but then when you actually hear it, it's like, whoa, this is wild. When you're talking about all the forced apologies and the forced, like, them wanting that crazy Zoom. What's the deal with her taking steroids? She wanted to win an MMA fight, and she's been popped for steroids before throughout her career. So that's just something she does. And she's not the only fighter, not as women, men, or athlete. I mean, a lot of athletes are on juice.
It's not uncommon. I mean, especially in the martial sports.
Yeah, and CM Punk was indeed an embarrassment in UFC. He was.
We lost Draco.
Oh no!
Doggone it!
Damn wrestling and UFC talk. But yeah, he had this interview where it was just like this tell-all type interview on everything that was going behind the scenes, and that's what this felt like. And I'm surprised it was as candid. I remember yesterday there was a Midnight's Edge video that was kind of like giving a preview of it because they saw it on the Daily Wire, and they said, "Oh, this won't be this tell-all interview." So I thought it was going to be a little bit more reserved, but it was way more candid than I expected, and it just shows that we're not crazy with how we think. There definitely is a political slant because she talked about how she kept getting bullied by employees there, and we've seen it. We've talked about it. I probably have talked about some of the stuff those other employees have been doing for months and months and months with some of their tweets. They brought up Pedro Pascal's tweets of the 2018 America, which was really, what was it, Palestine or something like that? I can't remember what country it was, but it wasn't America. And 1994 or 1944, Germany. It was just these tweets that were very inappropriate relative to the Holocaust by people on the left. And then to Gina's credit, she was actually very complimentary of Pedro Pascal. And I honestly, even though I think there was a point in the interview she was talking about, somebody that she wished would say something, I kind of think she may have been talking about him. I'm not sure for sure. But because she said somebody who had their own issues. If you remember, Pedro's had a ton of behind the scenes issues with Lucasfilm, not on politics. And she talked about somebody like, I wish they would tell their story, but I know they're not, she didn't say I know they're not going to, but she just basically like, I wish they would talk about what's going up. And this is where my antennas went up. Like, wonder if she's talking about him? Because she was very complimentary to Pedro. We have our what to say, but it seems like they have a respect with each other. And that's pretty cool to see.
Absolutely. All right, Draco, initial reactions to the interview. Are you back with us?
Draco, the CIA got him. Damn CIA.
Don't hear me?
Hey, there you are, brother.
That's what I got.
As long as my audio is back. Yeah, sorry, I was roboting in streams there, so I was having a connection issue. It's two. My initial feelings on it is number one, get out of the way that I can't help simping for Gina, because not only did I appreciate the emotionality that she was portraying in that whole thing, the idea that she might have anger, she definitely admitted to fear as she was going through each of these things. Every single question that she went through, sometimes you felt that she was on the edge of tears. And she also talked about having that sense that if she feels that challenge, if she feels a bully or someone must be protected, that the hot blood, as she put it a couple times, wells up inside of her. And the thing is that what touched me emotionally is that I have an equivalence with her, at least from what she said about when you see people being picked on and you are there observing it, you're going to make a stand. You're going to stand up for that person because that person is being bullied unreasonably by someone who doesn't have the right to pick on these people. So I would feel in the exact same way, and I cannot stand when people are picked on just because something they said or something that they believe, especially from her point of view, when people start lying about the things that she did and about several of the things that she said. And just like, this woman is so emotional, naturally shy. This was something that you even saw. When Drunk 3PO was interviewing her, She was just a genuine person and doesn't deserve the shit that these fucking assholes.
Yes. No, absolutely.
Fucking assholes are throwing at her.
Dude,
so
absolutely.
My opinion of this is we finally got to see her talk, and that much at least good that Shapiro put that out. And yes, she's got someone that she's apparently protecting. And apparently she admitted to having significant differences with Pedro Pascal, that she still thinks in her own mind that he's a good person, even though they're on completely opposite poles, which, I mean, that at least is something very obvious from what we see of his public side. They are so completely polar opposites, but they have a friendship, and she will stand up for him in the same way. If someone was picking or bullying on him, I'm sure she would do that. And I'm hoping that these platforms and the people that are surrounding her now, just like she thanked Shapiro for that phone call, that now she will be able to, even in her shyness, get out there and be that much more, I mean, pushing through the fear, pushing through her own insecurities about being in front of people and being someone that people gravitate to. And step up and be that fighter, because I don't even know how much she understands how people like all of us that care about her, that understand her, and may understand her more from this interview, how much will gravitate to her and stand behind her and just be willing to pick another fight, because people like that, I mean, she's the unwilling leader now.
Yep.
Is the person that we might not be willing to throw our entire hearts behind anybody, but I believe we would stand with Gina and we would stand behind her if we got the opportunity to, because she is genuine, she is ill, she is emotional, she does stand up for others who deserve and need someone to be in their corner.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Draco. And I mean, very well said, brother. I mean, my initial take on it, for myself personally, I listened to the whole thing today, and minus the extras from the Daily Wire. I may go subscribe to the Daily Wire so I can listen to what they didn't give us for free on YouTube. And my take on it overall was, this is a woman who has been deeply wounded. I was listening to this interview, and it felt like for about half of it, she was holding back tears, and she was genuinely hurt. And in many ways, I think she was a little baffled, almost, that mob had come for her. And the biggest thing that I took away about her from this interview is, this is a real down-to-earth woman whom does not deserve, not remotely, the kind of hate that has been sent at her. And the one thing I was sure of is that this is somebody you want as your friend, because one of the most important things about a genuine friend that you know that you can count on is that they're going to be there for you. And I have zero doubt whatsoever that if one of Gina's friends needs her help, she is the first person there at 3:30 in the morning to do whatever it is that they need done, whether it's get them to the doctor because they had an accident, whether it's hold them because their boyfriend broke up with them, whether it's help them out because they've come out on an exceptionally financially hard time. I am absolutely certain that Gina is the sort of person that you go to in a crisis, because she always helps her friends and loved ones. That was my biggest takeaway from this interview, is that this is a good, kind person.
Yeah, and you guys have talked about the unwillingness. That's something, and I'm glad, Draco, you brought up the drunk 3PO interview, because that interview, the parallel is that you can tell that she's somebody. She said that she's found her political journey, her political voice in the past year. That she was completely unaware of the hate mob. She was us maybe before The Last Jedi came out. We had no clue that not liking something could get you labeled as racist. It was like a shock. Like that shock is still there with her. And you guys are talking about unwilling leaders, but I mean, hey, the founding fathers were just guys. You know what I mean? A lot of times the unwilling leaders are the best type because they're coming from a place of genuineness. And she definitely comes from a very genuine place. I also saw what you saw about, it looks like she was close to tears. You can definitely see that this is a very emotional experience. I had heard, and I'm not sure if it was on the YouTube, I don't feel like I got to it in an interview, but I heard she even said how it had affected her emotionally as far as sleeping and things like that.
Yes.
I didn't get to that part of the interview, but I heard that just from other people talking about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could definitely tell it went through her, but she's also not backing down, and that's true courage, is being afraid of something and doing it anyway. And you just hope more people could do that. And Rajesh Taylor, not to cut you off real quick, I want to get off. Rajesh Taylor brought up, it's no coincidence that as soon as she started to raise money against child trafficking, they came after her. Wonder why they pulled the trigger that night. Somebody else brought up adrenochrome. If I had drew it, I'm not sure about that. Not to go exozone and mess the stream up anymore, but just to toss that out there.
There's a possibility of woo-woo, but they definitely timed that prior to the news cycle. Fenrir, as I was speaking over.
Yeah, just a real quick clarification on the sleep thing, just in fairness. That was actually Ben doing his little hustle for his endorsements, talking about a sleep aid, and he said, and she's told me she's had trouble sleeping, so I referred her to this thing that I use as a sleep aid. He was hustling,
He's got a few.
I remember that part, but I thought there was a part where she said it actually affected her. So that was coming from secondhand, not having got through the whole interview. So if I'm wrong, I apologize about that.
Well, that's all I remember about the sleep thing.
Just in case it wasn't in the subject matter.
Yeah. Now she did go into talking about what red pilled her, and it was the lockdowns and people being unable to work. And she related that very personally, and she talked about how in her career she had experienced significant depression related to not being working. And it started with being an MMA fighter, because as a fighter, she'd be on contract and fighting and getting paid for a year. And then she'd be out for a year, and she'd be in for a year, and she'd be out for a year. And then that transitioned to acting as well. You'd have a job for a while, and then you wouldn't, then you would, then you wouldn't. And so one of the things she was so thankful to Shapiro for was, as soon as she finds out she's out of a job and out the door, apparently he called her up like a couple days later. Like, it was pretty quick. And she repeatedly expressed her thankfulness to Shapiro about calling her personally to discuss setting up whatever this project they're putting together. They clearly don't know yet. They said that in the piece. So they're still working on it, and that is what catalyzed her into the political speech that she was making over the course of the past year, because she said that she personally related to the depression associated with not being able to work, which I'm just hearing that. And, I try not to get too much into politics on the channel, but I've mentioned on other channels that I'm rather stridently libertarian. So I'm hearing her say that, and it's just like, oh, preach to me, Gina. So I appreciated that.
That's so insane. I mean, and are they still attacking her because of the whole trans rights thing? I mean, I've seen all her tweets, and she never speaks anything about trans rights. Why are they still attacking her about this?
Because it's not about what they say it's about. It's never, nothing's as it seems with the Joker. It never is.
Yeah, because I'm sorry, but even if she speaks anything about that, I'm pretty sure she'll be the right one on the side because I'm up for everybody wanting to be happy. But if trans right has to do with a man twice the size of the woman beating them up mercilessly in a cage and breaking their skulls, then I'm pretty much against that kinds of rights. But if it comes to a person wanting to be happy about themselves and their lives, not destroying other people's lives in the process, then I'm happy for you. But if it's the other way around, then I'm sorry, I'm not on your side. So please, Twitter, come after me too. I'm sick of the hypocrisy.
I mean,
logical.
Dude, a biological man should not be in an MMA ring with a biological woman in most cases. No. I mean, straight
especially
up.
when women are so like women's fighting. If you notice, women MMA fighters do not complain like WNBA players. Now, Rajesh or Sentient talking about how the UFC money is non-existent. I added they're still very underpaid, but like women's MMA is very interesting in and of itself to watch, more so than most women's sports. And I would hate to see that ruined. I always talk about the Weili Zhang, Jonah Gira, I can't pronounce her last name, but those two fought earlier last year, and it was it was the fight of the year. Like, it was one of the most masterful striking fights you'll ever see of any two fighters, regardless of gender, as far as what they did in that ring against each other. And it's like, I don't want you to just add some jacked up dude that's to make this a freak show when I think women's MMA, because of Gina Carano, because of, I talk crap about Cyborg, but she's a popular figure. Obviously, Ronda Rousey, Amanda Nunes, they've built credibility as a sport. And if it's very weird that when feminists bring up stuff, they never bring up women's MMA, because this is a sport that over the past 15, 20 years has built up a natural, legitimate credibility for itself in and of itself as strong, independent women doing things that most men outright cannot do. You cannot win a fight with most of these women. And they never get any credit.
It's not just women MMA, it's other sports too. Football, soccer, swimming, pretty much 100-meter lap runs, and they're all being destroyed by men who are saying they're women, but we never see women who say that they're men making any new different records in male sports. I mean, can you not see the line there? I mean, they're just destroying what the things of women and destroying their names.
What about the women who can have college opportunity? I know we've tangented, but I just wanted to. There's women that
we'll stay on it for a few minutes. It's good.
Okay, but no, I know. I'm sorry, but yeah, that just bothers me too.
I began this conversation here. And I'm taking
I felt like girls who were like they were first in their track meet, but now they're fourth because of the trans. It's like that's messed up too. You don't want to do that.
Yeah,
look, if they want to have their own sports, then let's just do this. There's male sports, there's female sports. Then let's make gender-neutral transsexual sports where they can all play in their specific field and harm themselves and get their own scholarships.
We'll just call it the anything goes division. Man, you can juice up, you can be whomever, whatever you want, identify as anything you please, even a pineapple. I don't care. We'll let you anything goes in this division. We're gonna have men's MMA, we're gonna have women's MMA, and we're gonna have the anybody who fucking wants to fight division.
X, Y, and O. You have X for the women, you have Y for the men, you have O for all bets off.
I'm good with that.
Everyone would be good with that. Because, I mean, I literally saw a fight where a man literally broke a woman's skull by punching her over and over and over and over again, nonstop. No. That is that's not right.
I remember what you're talking about. I saw the video of that afterwards, and it was fucking disgustingly brutal. It was gut wrenching. And
assholes on Twitter were saying stunning and brave. For fuck's sake.
That is not fucking submission anymore. That's brutality.
That's domestic abuse. That's sickening.
A crime.
Why do we have a steroid policy in all these sports, which gets broken all the damn time, to protect people from being violent towards each other, even though, again, it gets broken all the time. But that's the idea. You don't want someone who's on steroids, in any of these fields of play, let alone fighting, having the ability to hurt somebody. And that's because one person has a higher amount of testosterone than the other. So you shouldn't have someone who is a biological man fighting a biological woman. That's unfair. And again, women's fighting is interesting. It's something that people genuinely watch because of the skill set of the women. So it's one of the few things you would think feminists would be loving women's fighting as for everything they stand for, but you never hear anything about it.
I like women's MMA and UFC. I like it just as much as the men's division.
It is.
I
really
cannot
good. That's why
say
I'm
that
championing it so much.
There is no other sport I can say that about. But the fighting, it is just as good.
It is just as good. They are very
about the sport because they just want people to think that all women are victims, and apparently they don't want women to look weak, but apparently they're always victims every single time of the day. Because I believe if a woman trains hard enough, they could probably beat up a man if they are smart enough. If a man twice their size, they're smart enough. They have a good strategy. They're good in combat. But not in an actual ring fight. Not enough space to fight or to think. That's just an impossible task.
Yeah, like they could fight you or me, but not a trained fighter who's been fighting 20, 30 years like most of these fighters are fighting since they were 9 years old, training. You're not going to be able to fight that if you're a biological woman against a biological man who has that same amount of training. Again, I'm sure Gina Carano can beat my ass even if I'm trying my hardest. I just don't have the physical ability. I'm too out of shape. She'll put me in the choke and that's a wrap. I don't have a choice. But you can, if I was skilled in fighting since I was 10, she wouldn't be able to. That's just not how it's going to work. Yes, women's volleyball. That's another sport that we don't see enough of. I've always wondered, like, why don't we see more of this? Why don't we have to wait 4 years to see women's volleyball? I'm sure there are guys who would appreciate the sport all year round. All year round.
I'm sure there would. And if there isn't already, someone go out and create a category for this on the hub. You'll make a lot of money. Yeah.
You're going to make me bring up one of my funny pictures, aren't you?
If you bring it up, I very well may share it, Draco.
Seriously, though. This has to fucking change before someone actually dies.
And I do wonder if this exact topic that we are talking about, that identify as a woman who, she cracked the skull of the woman she was fighting, almost killed her. It was not a near thing. It was fucking brutal. And I do wonder if that had something to do with Gina's resistance to the pronouns. She did not talk about that in the interview, okay? I want to be very clear. This is me talking. It is not anything that Gina said. Okay? Gina said nothing about this, but I do wonder if that kind of thing was in the back of her mind when she's like, yo, I'm not going to validate this. Look, if somebody with long hair and female clothing walks up to me and requests that I call them Jennifer and address her as her, I'm gonna do that. That's fine. Yeah. But I also don't want that same person playing martial sports against my daughters.
Yeah,
that's fair.
That's
very fair.
Right.
And I didn't think about that, but the transgender and fighting thing is a few-year-old argument. This is not new. This has been something that's been kind of pushed for a little bit, and it could have been something in the deep. Even if it wasn't something she was necessarily conscious of, I'm sure there's like wait a second, there's a resistance, and it's not because again, if somebody is, like you just said, I've actually worked with somebody that was a transgender, and it just was. I just called him her. Oh, geez, I should have said that. Them, her. So yeah, and that was just how it is. Yeah, girls volleyball.
So now, who in their right mind would be willing to ruin this by putting a Franken beans in those shorts?
Oh man, no. And again, why is
no?
It's funny that we exist in this era of OnlyFans, but we don't have girls volleyball. Like, you think at some point, for years and years, we knew that women's sensuality sold. You don't have to. They could just wear that. those exact clothing, which are just shorts and a shirt, and guys would just watch. And guys would not only watch because we're guys, we would start giving a damn about stats because we would start learning. We would learn the damn game on top of it because we would come for the assets. We end up staying for the damn game because that's how we are. So why has no one thought to push that? I guess because the male gaze bad. My male gaze bad.
Because male gaze bad, exactly.
Yeah,
the very
I've
fact
been male
that I have that
gazing
in
for
a
over
funny
40
folder
years, and I don't plan to stop anytime soon.
And this bullshit about the male gaze. We literally have places like Pornhub, Xvideos, OnlyFans. There is literally innumerable amounts of things that give us the male gaze without actually having to do it in front of other people. So what the fuck does this even matter if they're cutting it off? It's not going to change anything. There are still many places we can watch it.
We can gaze. Fuck, go to the store and you can male gaze all you like.
Nope.
Yep.
Most girls girls like yoga pants. So it's like, what do you want me to do?
I like yoga pants too.
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you don't. Because everybody shouldn't get yoga pants.
Not all yoga pants are created
nothing's
equal.
Worse than the flat, the big Brie Larson. You know what I mean? Where it's like you have as much ass as Brie Larson, but you have as much ass as a dump truck at the same time, and it's all pushed into this. So again, I look like a Goodyear blimp. I'm not making fun, but it's not a pretty sight. So you shouldn't like yoga pants as much. No disrespect to shout out to the thick girls. I love the thick girls.
So this is a cool comment. Redshirt, why don't you take this one, man?
Because what do women at the highest seeds of professional tennis, who do they train against? Who do they play games against in preparation for a tournament? They don't play professional men's tennis players. They play male teenagers, in the same way the U.S. women's soccer team got their butts handed to them by the under 14s from Texas, the under 14 male soccer team from Texas. They do that, and unfortunately, they lost their minds. But McEnroe is probably correct, and if Williams were put into we don't distinguish sexes in tennis tournament, and that's the way tennis went. Yeah, I don't think she'd be very high. I don't know if she'd be down at 700, but she wouldn't be that high up, and she certainly wouldn't be a favorite to win tournaments.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't she play an exhibition against like the 200 rated man and get her ass kicked?
She did. Yeah.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Jake D, I've got a picture here. This is an example of the person that doesn't want women's beach volleyball. Hang on a second.
Let me just you fair taxpayers, because let's be honest, I actually haven't paid any in many years in my own country and probably won't for quite some time. You do know that this shit is going to go military now, right? So yeah, you should probably try to be safe. Because they're going to force it.
What is this, red shirt?
Let me introduce you to Trigglypuff.
I remember her. I hope she's alive and has lost weight since.
I hope so, but she's a student at Hampshire College in Massachusetts, and this was shot of her trying to disrupt some sort of a meeting on campus. And this thing went viral, and it became a meme. And this is the sort of woman that complains about the male gaze.
I see that picture.
I think. I'm 90% sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. Was that at a Ben Shapiro thing at a campus?
I think it was.
Because you know how he used to do the campus tour. We were talking. People would basically riot because he showed up. That's how I found out about the guy. And I really think that was a freaking Ben Shapiro thing. So to come full circle, everything's connected.
It was either Shapiro or Jordan Peterson. One or the other.
It could have been Jordan Peterson.
Jordan
Peterson. Yeah. It was something like that. It could have been Jordan Peterson. You're right. It may have been him. And man, I'm not trying to, because she has her arms up. I just can't. I'm not trying to do this to the chat. I don't want to lose anyone on Jake's team. But the first thing I think is just older, and I just again, I look like a blip, but just.
I'm sorry, but I really have to ask: is this woman still alive? Because she does not look very.
Yeah,
I hope she lost weight. You know what? I've wondered, no lie, what happens to some of these people in the memes. One of my very first video, I made a joke about the one girl in the triggered meme. She was actually a school teacher with short hair and the glasses. Like, whatever happened to her? No one cares about how she's doing. I hope she's. I legit hope she's okay from this meme. I legit hope this woman's okay. I hope the one Trump girl I hope these people are like mentally healthy and in a good place. No lie, because like they're immortalizing this meme. They don't look like the most stable individuals going into the meme. So I can't imagine being immortalized in the meme, especially if you're this big.
Now, Redshirt, because you elected to share this particular picture with us, you have earned an achievement tonight, my friend.
Aww.
But that's the girl I was talking about. I want to know what happened to her.
Let's get this off of the street, JT. I don't want to look at it anymore.
She said a lot of cat cinch and dildo says.
The old days, when there used to be cool army guys and movies and TV shows.
You know, it's funny that you bring that up because Mary G was commenting about exactly this in the chat, Fenrir.
There you go. That would be the opposite then. Thank you, Mary G.
Yes. There is a female gaze as well.
Well, let me tell you something. That's going to disappear because apparently the U.S. military now wants to hire these people, the rears, the fat ones, to be your country's next army. The United States Marine Corps and Navy SEALs still hang the believe of actually making soldiers, but the Army's not that great. Neither is the Air Force. So good luck in the next years.
And China's making their army more masculine, just so you know.
Yeah, and they're pretty much just laughing at you. You guys know this, right?
We're laughing at ourselves because we have to keep from crying.
I mean, I really don't think a lot of these people would actually want to join the military. Not because of the hard work, because again, they might actually die and have to do some work.
Mary G, you say they'll still have to make it till boot camp. That's now. That's until that changes. That's until boot. That's until boot camp is. It's not fat positive. It's not whatever. And they'll make up something where you don't have to. We have to be more inclusive. And trust me, that ain't guaranteed.
Fenrir, to your point, my friend. So this is from BBC, and I think some of us have seen this recently. China promotes an education drive to make boys more manly. Quite the opposite of what we're experiencing in the Western world right now.
I don't want to jinx it, but it seems like they're preparing for something.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be weird? It seems like they had a lot of money and a lot of media companies, a lot of tech companies, and a lot of technology that has to do with our election. And then they put in then the guy who got elected is somebody who's very, part of he really likes that country and wants to make them more of our country. They also infiltrated our educational system. Because there's a lot of plants there, and that's been proven, but it's never reported on. And then they're trying to mess with our military.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yep.
I mean, now they want women.
Don't worry about it.
Now they're going to allow women. Now they're going to allow women to live in the same bunk rooms as men, and women
that's
can now
use a good way to make babies.
And women are now going to use lipstick, or allowed to use makeup and lipstick. And let's be honest, there's a reason why they're not allowed to use makeup and lipstick, not live in the same room. Because let's be honest, these guys past months in their training rooms, constantly around other men. Most of them are straight and have not had sex or watched porn in God knows how long.
About
sexual frustration.
But look, the opposite is also true, Fenrir. Do not let anyone ever tell you that ladies don't like getting a little physical, because they do. Okay, one thing I have learned in my 41 years is the ladies like getting physical just as much as us male gazers. Okay, so if you
I heard about the military ladies before this anyway. No offense to any of the military ladies. I just heard you guys like Jake said, like you like to get physical, which is no disrespect.
Yes, and there's nothing wrong with that.
The thing about the military, it's a special case in that discipline needs to be, for any officer in the military, a primary concern. Discipline and morale. Now, morale may not be great if you keep the men and the women segregated, but whatever benefits you might get for morale are more than offset by the problems of discipline if in any military unit. And that's the biggest issue that the military now has to grapple with, is they're given all of these directives.
Yeah.
It's not going to help the military's discipline.
Yeah.
I can't have half of my units down pregnant.
And look, straight up, you put men and women in the same barracks, and after they've been working hard together, look, when you're part of a military unit, you bond and you become a team, and there is a closeness and a camaraderie. And you cannot tell me that in a mixed sex unit that is not going to result in a fair amount of
one of the significant
physical interaction.
It's going to develop feelings. You're going to have feelings. I mean, significant feelings. You have friendship. You don't want to see your buddy killed. What if you don't want to see your significant other killed? What is that going to do to you in actual action?
It's a problem.
That could be a problem strategic-wise, because then the soldier will only be thinking about the partner and not about the mission, putting in jeopardy not
the team, all your friends, all your buddies, all the women and men.
Exactly. It is a dangerous move. There's a reason why men and women are constantly kept separate in the military, and why the military is not a happy-go-lucky place where people can feel good about their feelings. It's literally a place where you're called a fucking faggot and sent to get out your fucking ass and get to work. That the generals, they're not meant to be your friends. They're meant to make sure you survive at least a month in service. Not to be your friends.
Yep. Absolutely true, man. Absolutely true. So I mean, like, all of this, honestly, I think all of this is in Gina's mind when she's going through all that shit last year, and she starts posting these more and more red-pilled type things, right? And so, like, her and Ben talk about stuff that's related to everything we've just been discussing through this whole interview. And so, excuse me. So, Vida, there was a point where she was talking about how she grew up fighting, and she addressed this "she came from money" thing that came up, right? And she talked about how her family actually tried to stop her from being in an MMA fight. So what was your take on that, hearing that about her background? Because I didn't know that.
Going to V-Dub, because V-Dub had to step away.
Oh, well, hey, Draco, how about you pipe in then, brother?
And can you re-ask the question again? Because I was reading this thing in chat and I wanted to hear the whole thing.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, chat.
Yeah, so Gina was talking about how her family actually tried to stop her from becoming a professional fighter. So, little known secret anymore, because there were a couple of hit pieces about it. But she comes from a very wealthy family, several $100 million in the family trust. The woman doesn't need money. Okay. But she chose to become a fighter because, in her own words, the fighting spoke to her, and it gave her an intimacy, and it gave her a sense of purpose that she didn't get out of the thought of being a doctor or a lawyer or any of that shit. And she gravitated to it. And she said a lot of it had to do with when she was growing up, she got in a lot of scraps in Vegas. And usually it was because she was sticking up for somebody who was getting bullied. And she said that she didn't start these fights, but she finished a few of them. Okay. And so her family actually actively tried to stop her from becoming an MMA fighter. Like straight up, her dad and her granddad, who was apparently on the gaming commission board, like actually forced a bunch of extra tests to try to get her fight canceled. So, I mean, what do you take away from that, man?
Take away from that, this is one of the significant parts of her personality that, I mean, talk about the shy and you talk about the softer and the more feminine emotions in her. But the thing is that, number one, she grew up with that sense of justice by making certain that, I mean, she's almost that. I mean, now I'm formulating this idea in my head, and maybe it's sensationalized because of my appreciation of the hero myth in pop culture. But the thing is that she so wanted to protect people who could not protect themselves. She practically is, by all intents and purposes, in her own mind, that idea of a hero mindset, a personality that does not go out and seek conflict, but will not shy away from protecting others who do not seem to be able to protect themselves. And not even her family, who would do everything that they could in their power other than simply attempt to deny her that. They were not going to stop her. She was going to keep pushing through. Even a good point there. If her family started behaving like the bullies, was that even going to stop her? I don't think so. That would just
in a weird way,
would reinforce her resolve just that much more.
Yep.
And I suppose that speaks to that point. They were not going to stop her. Probably realized it at that point. She might even go away and do things without being in the Las Vegas fighting circuit if they were going to keep putting roadblocks in her way. They tested her more. She proved them out by saying, well, go ahead and, well, by function, without actually putting words into her mouth, go ahead and test me because I want to do this. I need to do this. I'm going to fight. I'm going to stand up for people, and I'm going to go out there and do the thing that speaks to me. And it also had to do with that sense of who she is and what her personality is based on, because it's like that struggle session that some people have brought up, the idea of what they were going to do to attempt to stomp on her for this supposed trans rights. All these conversations she had with the people in the trans community that they put her in touch with when she put the beep bop boop pronouns in her bio. She had these conversations and she talked to them on the phone, and when that was not going to be enough for her to attempt to placate the idea by saying something logical, and they were coming back to her saying, no, you got to be emotional with these people, which doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense when you go into it. But they wanted to put her in a struggle session on Zoom. She says, why can't I take these people out? We've got some businesses that are open. I can take them out to dinner. I can feed them. I can look them in their eyes. On that same thing that she said later in the meeting, talking about looking a person in your eye, and we're going to have a fight. We're going to have a fight, and this is a very personal, it's a very intimate thing. It is, we're going to meet in the ring. I'm going to look you into the face, and we're going to have a combative relationship, to use different words. But the thing is that speaks to her. That's part of her personality. It's part of her soul. And that's the way she is continuing in life. She wants to be up front, in front of people. She wants to be able to, if she could, put her arms around people to provide support for them, as much as she wants to shake your hand like the ancient warriors did to show that they were not holding a weapon in their weapon hand. She wants to be that kind of intimacy. I want to talk to you as a person, as another individual. And that is part of who she is.
You bet. I'm glad you brought that up. I am so glad you brought that up. So, Redshirt, are you with us, brother?
Hey, Redshirt?
I was on mute.
Yes, excellent. So,
yes, I'm here.
I want to get your thoughts on this piece, man, because Draco brought up something that I was thinking about too, and I'm glad he segued into it. But during the interview, Gina talked on numerous different occasions about how she wants to look people in the eye. And she brought it up when they were talking about proposing. They had a PR person come in, and she actually asked the PR lady to take her glasses off and sit down and talk with her so she could look her in the eye. And she talked about how when she was in the MMA ring, one of the things that was so and using her words, intimate about it, was that you're right there looking somebody right in the eye as a part of the fight. And then
one of her quotes, the intimacy speaks to her. Go on.
And then she talked about how they were proposing after the whole pronoun thing that she needed to get on a Zoom call with like 40 fucking people to basically run her through the ringer and tell her what a piece of shit she was. She proposed, just like Draco was talking about, taking 5 or 6 of them to dinner and sitting down and having a conversation where they could look each other in the eye. And she said that over and over and over again. So what does that, for lack of a better word, she places a very high importance on that personal face-to-face contact. What does that tell you about her?
What it tells me about her is that
she's old school.
She is old school. She is also brave enough to be able to look somebody in the eye when they're not happy with her. And she will volunteer to sit down. She talked with a couple of LGBT community leaders on the request of her publicist, if I remember, before she talked about this. And so as a result of having done that, she proposed to Disney a counter proposal. Well, rather than put me through a struggle session where basically 40 Disney employees get to beat me up where I can't see them really, and you get to record that, which is something she also mentioned, I'd rather have a private conversation with several people and go to dinner with them and let's work this out. And that wasn't acceptable to Disney. So what it told me was she was willing to meet anybody on even terms, equal terms, but don't put me at a disadvantage to start with, because that goes back to her absolute hatred of bullies. And putting somebody in a compromised position to start with is what a bully wants to do, because they don't want a fair fight. They don't want to have to look you in the eye. And what Disney was trying to do was basically put her over a barrel, and she saw it coming. And she said, well, I got a better idea. I applaud her for that. I also applaud her for saying, okay, if you're not willing to do that, you're not trying to resolve anything. You're not trying to get a discussion going. You want this to be shut up, they explained. That's the conversation you want me to have.
If I may insert there, she was saying that she was observant of social media and how other people were doing what Disney was telling her to do, and it was doing nothing but allowing people to berate them, talk down to them, cancel them further.
Yep. She also said something I thought was very, very, said this is how far she's come and how much she's had to learn in a short period of time. She said, never apologize to a mob. And that was what Disney wanted her to do.
That's exactly what they wanted her to do. And I wanted to say something about another point that Draco brought up about her family not wanting her to get into MMA so much so that they rigged it against her getting into it. And whether they meant to or not, that was almost a way of tough love, because sometimes like you need someone to say, I don't believe in you, no. So you can fight through that. And that I think that's how you build someone into a fighter, whether you mean to or not. And go ahead.
I think the reason why we have so many pussies around the world is because no one ever gave them tough love.
Yeah.
Positive effect of pushing through a barrier has on your character.
It absolutely does. And I mean, eventually her family gave like, okay, she's serious, so we're not going to do it. But that's how she became a good fighter. That's how you get that spirit. And there's something about the spirit of a fighter. Like, there's a reason that boxers and MMA come back so often. Even somebody, Mike Tyson just came back recently against Roy Jones, who came back recently. Even Floyd Mayweather will fight those stupid little exhibitions because they like combat, and they like being challenged is a challenge. Like, because we've talked about how Gina, you can tell that she's been emotional about this. And, it's not like she's just fighting for the sake of fighting. She's talked about, like you guys said, respectfully sitting down, having dinner. But she's somebody who's not going to back down on her principles. It's just not going to happen. She's willing to have a conversation. She's willing to meet people halfway, but she's not willing to relent. It's not in her spirit. Like, fighters don't have that in them. They don't back down. No matter what you think of them, that's just not how they're built in general. If you've ever followed MMA or boxing, they're not the ones that tend to bend the knee in general.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And I like this comment from Sentient Dildo, struggle is essential, but struggle session, absolutely not.
Yeah, that sounds crazy.
Dude, I mean, to Gina's huge credit, I mean, she saw that trap and she took the correct answer, which was not playing that game. I mean, straight up, she saw it coming and she said, fuck no, I am not letting you get me into that. For as new as she is to this social media game and being a star and, whatever else there is about her being this celebrity that she has made herself. And I'm going to repeat that. She made herself into a celebrity through her hard work and her hustle and her never say die and not backing down attitude. That is how she became who she is. And so of course she didn't back down here, man. I mean, when she has hit adversity, Lord Thoth said it really, really well. Strength through adversity, adapt and overcome. That has been her career from the first moment that we laid eyes on her in her early MMA days, all the way to now up to this interview that she had with Shapiro. It's always about adapting, changing, and responding to the situation in front of her in a way to overcome. And I just respect the hell out of her for that.
Jake D, did something get I'm sure I know you've seen what I'm about to refer to, but there was one point in the interview where, and speaking of who Gina is and this journey she's had to go through, I learned something she learned not that long ago on FNT when Carrie from Unsafe Space was there, because Gina said, why didn't this work? I mean, what do I have to do? And she was told, I think it was by her publicist, not by Disney, you offered a logical answer to an emotional response, and that's not what they respond to. You need to offer an emotional response. Now, if you remember, Carrie made exactly that point of how to reach out to SJWs, because SJWs don't respond to facts and logic. They respond strictly to emotions. And I thought that was really telling that Carrie had said exactly the same thing that Gina was told. Like, you what? You facts and logic don't work? What? That'd be like saying, well, don't hit him. It's like Blazing Saddles. when Blazing Saddles, when Mongo has appeared in town and the Sheriff Bart goes to put on his gun and the Waco kid says, oh, no, don't shoot him. You'll just make him angry. like, now what do I do? So yeah, I just thought that was really telling, and it really stood out to me.
And you know, what did you say, Fenrir? Go ahead before I get into that rant.
Is that another movie I should look up to?
You haven't seen Blazing Saddles?
What?
Fenrir.
Oh my goodness!
Blazing
Yes.
Saddles. No.
You're right.
Fenrir, you
Oh my
haven't
God.
seen Blazing Saddles.
Got to do it for yourself, man.
Oh,
No,
that Young
You got to
Frankenstein.
find it before it's taken
Mel
away
Brooks.
from you.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I just bought it because
Those
it'll go
They're
away.
both really, really good. Those were movies I felt like
Yeah.
when I was like, when Comedy Central was around, they would play them all the time, and I was just like in tears. Blazing Saddles holds up well better than most comedies from that era.
Yes.
And a lot of them still hold up,
Yes.
but like that holds up really well. Really,
Oh,
really well.
trivia on Blazing Saddles. When you're talking
But it's a
vigilante, you're talking
solid
about watching it.
cancel culture. It's
Oh,
on
yeah.
cancel culture's hit list.
Got a bullseye on it. But
Excuse
they,
me, Rob,
when
what
you
the
talk
fuck?
about seeing it on TV,
Wait a
I
second.
know they used to censor.
Wait a
They
second.
used to censor the N-word.
Wait, Blazing Saddles.
They used
Is
to
this about
censor.
a black sheriff in a town full of white people?
Yes.
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 Okay, I've seen images of it in some comments, but I've never actually seen it.
Oh,
I'm sure
dude,
you've
you
seen
got
it.
you got it. You have a homework assignment, Fenrir.
Oh, I
Definitely.
forgot my point. In the,
Yeah.
While you're
I'm
working
sorry,
on your
Vigilante.
channel and
It's
your
cool.
and your home
Wait. I'm sorry. Everybody in the stream except for Fenrir has just earned this achievement.
Oh, come on.
By the fact that you haven't seen Blazing Saddles. Oh my god.
I love the. I just want to say I love the fact that when they put it on TV, and this is the reason I bought it on hard media, they would censor out the N-word. They would censor out even Lily Von Shh, because somebody told them what that meant in Yiddish. What they didn't censor was when Mel Brooks, as the Indian chief, says the N-word, but in Yiddish. Because nobody told them that Yiddish, and they didn't understand Yiddish. And you have to understand some Yiddish. And if you don't, you need to search for these phrases. But yeah,
Get a-
Mel Brooks.
Get a
Some
Yiddish
joke.
catalog on YouTube. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
Google
A glossary,
or Blaze
yeah, or Google,
DuckDuckGo.
yeah.
Yep.
Because he always throws something in, and Yiddish is a wonderful language for saying complicated things with one word. Every Yiddish word I know requires a story to define it.
Okay, but seriously, come on. I come from a generation where most of the girl things are impossible to find. You can't blame me
They
for
are.
that.
Yeah,
No,
because
it's
like
not
I
a
said,
blame, but we need you. We need to help you. We need to encourage you to get you into the group of the the toxic.
it's a piece of culture that you need to see.
I had my doubts about Smokey and the Bandit, but I watched it. I was thinking about watching the sequels too, but well, not that I can't find them. It's just that some people are really just. The guy in the video store laughed at me and told me not to watch it. So
The
yeah,
sequels were definitely a diminishing returns issue.
Yeah.
The fact that you've seen the first one is sufficient.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Really shows you don't need insane special effects. You just need a car jumping off a couple of bridges, and it's done. You just don't need too much.
So on the plus side, you aren't alone, Fenrir. Vigilant Vigilante has also not seen Blazing Saddles, and so
It's
Vigilant.
it's not
I'm giving
easy
you
to
the
find.
same homework assignment I gave Fenrir. You've got to go watch Blazing Saddles because holy shit, is that one of the funniest movies ever made?
Okay, we'll talk about it in my stream.
There you go.
Cool.
Stephanie Littlepage, the people trying to cancel Blazing Saddles need to have meaningless sex.
It is apparently still purchasable on YouTube for $4.
Wow, how about that? I would get a physical copy if I were you, though.
Yeah,
Get a physical
I would
copy.
That's preferable. Don't let that one go
If
by
you
the
can do it.
wayside. That one
No.
is backed up on my network with all the rest of my movies, but I'm glad it's there.
Yeah. I don't remember what my point was before we got into the Blazing Saddle discussion. But
it was just such a shocking statement. I mean, oh my God.
But you know something? Hey, a lot of people, like I said, my distant cousin, Vigilante.
You were talking about Mongo. You were talking about how he couldn't, how it will piss him off if you shoot him with the gun, and equating that to something that is gone. Stream brain.
I wasn't because. Oh, man.
Oh, don't use facts and logic. You'll only piss
facts
them
and
off.
logic. That
There
was
it
it.
is.
Yes, there you go. Okay, so that reasoning, that idea that I cannot use reason, and I get, Eric July talks about how things have to come down from the culture, and I get that. But if I cannot have a conversation and point out stuff with reason and logic and arguments and facts, then I have no interest in converting you. You are lost to me, and you are not somebody, because I am not going to just try to out emotion someone. Nothing gets solved with that. So the idea that people have to, they need emotions. Well, they're not the people I'm trying to reason with then, because there are people who are on the extreme, and then there's a huge, massive center where most people lie, and those are the people who are I think people who can be reasoned with, and I think people who are reasonable. You know what I mean? People who are more
who operate on a mix of emotion and logic.
Mix of emotion and logic. Yeah, like every other human should. Yeah, reason. So 20th century. I keep using reason. You can use logic.
As much as I logical. Say, you can use the emotion to speak to them, but sooner or later you've got to re-trigger. You got to apply the paddles to the logic in their brain, because if you can't, then functionally you're exactly what VW has said, that you cannot reach them if it's simply going to be an emotional context. You can touch them, you can reach that core, and you might actually be able to get them to communicate with you. But if you can't touch the reason that actually gets them beyond where they are stuck emotionally and being led by their emotional tethers, then how are you going to be able to operate with them?
Yeah,
absolutely, man. It's I don't know. It's tough for me because I get where you're coming from there, V-Dub. So when the publicist told Gina, and this was it was a good story when she was relaying this in the interview, and the publicist is telling her that her reasoned response, and this was again in relation to the whole pronoun thing. So and to set the stage a little bit for the people who are watching, if you haven't seen the interview, a prepared apology was basically handed to Gina, and that's what the PR lady was there to talk with her about. And they ended up having to work together. So Gina basically rejected what was given to her, and she put together her own response to the issue and then discussed it with the PR lady that was meeting with her in her living room. And the PR lady, she read it, and she told Gina that it was no good because it was so logical, right? So this is what V-Dub is going on about. And as a guy who's really very analytical and logical in my approach to most things, and I'm sure my girlfriend would tell you, God, I really wish he'd feel something sometimes. But I'm a bit like that myself. And that is exactly the sort of response I would have prepared in the same situation, right? So when she's told that this just doesn't even work, and her response to that basically being that it's just completely inadequate. I'm not even sure how I would react to that if I was in that situation. But it sounds like Gina's response was to have the conversation with some of these folks directly, which, I mean, that may have been about the best darn thing she could have done, because it sounds like, at least for the moment, it had placated things, because what Gina tells us in the interview is that the people from the community that she met with at that time went back to Disney and told Disney not to shit can her, because there was nothing malicious, and they genuinely believed that she wasn't out to do anything wrong, and that they liked her and they felt comfortable with her.
My recollection is that was the people that they put her in touch with over the phone.
Yes.
The publicist was always against the idea of using the logic, and she had to use the prepared. While the people on the phone with the LGBT plus that they told her to speak to had said, we really feel sorry for you. We understand you use their language. You kind of stepped on a landmine here. Started using that term because that's what are you going to do? She was just trying to saying exactly what she needed to the LGBT community. This is not about you. I just am not bending the knee to the mob. And they understood it. And they went back and said, as far as we're concerned, we think it'd be a bad idea to cancel.
They said something else to her, which was interesting, and she had a response to them that I loved, because they said, we don't think you're being hostile. We don't think you're a phobe. We don't think you're an ist. But we really are sorry that you have to put up with all of these attacks from people on Twitter, this Twitter mob. And Gina said, well, if they're not doing you any favors, maybe you should focus a little more on quieting them down.
Mm-hmm.
She actually redirected them to say, well, while you guys are promoting your own rights and your own situation and the people that you represent, why don't you try and help prevent other people from being trashed by random anonymous people on Twitter? And I thought that was telling. She said, why don't you do that, Tom?
Why I call her the unwilling hero.
Yep.
Hey, a lot of heroes start off their journey very unwilling, and then they that's usually the RPG hero is unwilling, and then they get thrust into the role. And another statement about a lot of those Twitter people, a lot of them do not belong to the LGBTQ group or are trans. They're just angry people on Twitter who's using it as an excuse for hatred. And I've seen goodness, I cannot think of the person's name. They're a journalist. Is it Sophia Narwitz? I think maybe the name. And they are a trans individual, and they are I guess more right leaning in their journalistic slant, and they get tons and tons and tons of hatred from people purporting for that community. So it's not, as I said again, that belonging to that group or belonging to whatever group they're using as a shield means nothing, because it's still about you bending the knee mentally and spiritually to whatever their whims are. That's really what the key is. And they just use everything else as a shield.
Yeah.
On the member stream earlier, Ian Slater, if you guys remember, he was talking about the very nature of these hate. I was just referring to when I mentioned it, I was just referring to the very nature of roles that we have had ever since there's been media on the internet. But now that you have Twitter, now that you have social media, now that you have the tools for people who believe similar things to get together and focus things like hatred, they have been able to weaponize some of their effects. And Ian Slater just said it very simply, talked about how these people are just hateful people. They don't see any good in themselves. They externalize it. I'm taking things slightly out of context because I don't remember everything he said exactly, but talking about how they don't like these things and they want to take down other people, to bring down other people to their level and things like that. And when you said that, and I appreciate you so much for bringing that up, Redshirt.
Yeah.
And that is just turning it right back where it needs to go. Go ahead, Jake.
And for 17 years ago, when I first got on the internet on a regular basis, and I was actually an admin on a bulletin board site, I learned my first lesson in spotting an SJW. They get offended by something you wrote or said on behalf of someone else. So to the point that most of these people on Twitter are not part of the the LGBTQ community, yeah, that's a hallmark of the social justice warrior. They're offended on behalf of the people who can't speak for themselves, so they have to.
Yeah, and God, that in and of itself is so fucking bigoted and prejudiced to the white knighting, saying that these people can't speak for themselves. First off, the very idea of otherizing them into a these people category is in and of itself prejudice. Exactly, right?
What do you mean, you people?
Yes,
I'm sorry.
exactly.
Tropic Thunder reference. I'll get us canceled.
Yes! Gotta
was so
reference
good.
Tropic Thunder, baby. But yeah, so the very concept of otherizing people like that and then white knighting for them is in and of itself so goddamn prejudiced and bigoted. It makes me fucking sick. I mean, for real, it really does. And Fat-Headed Druid brings up a point about the interview, right? So it is over 1 million views now with roughly a 98-2 ratio, which is phenomenal. Okay, and that tells you that people are responding.
Yep.
So they're saying that this is just a long road to recovery. Just a matter of time. People are sick of this shit.
I'm gonna be honest. I think this. I keep saying it. This will be the renaissance of the independent media. I know. Oh, Fenver. Speaking of which, did you ever get in touch with Grant Akuma? Because Fenver is a creator. He's a writer, and this is what opens it up for him. For one day, for when he comes up with a project, it's more likely to be creative. Because despite being a black man, I don't think Fenver could go in and get a job at Lucasfilm or anything like that because his politics. He doesn't think the right way. So I really hope that in the long term that what comes of this is that people are just fed up with Hollywood's projects, and that this encourages. She's working with the Daily Wire. I don't expect the Daily Wire on their own to just be this great movie building house, but I mean, hell, even I'm thinking, I'm like, man, I wonder if there's a cheap project that I could get together and get done. And so it's like. I think that's going to be she is an unintentional hero, but she is going to be kind of like, at least to a lot of people, remembered as a hero if this ends up being what I think it could be, and the beginning of something outside of the Hollywood bubble, the evil Hollywood bubble.
Of independent creators, even in movies, games, comics. People just want to go independent because it doesn't have bullshit. It's actually entertainment. I mean, there's a new comic book I've been waiting up on YouTube called Thomas Valiant. It belongs to RJ Comics. He's a pretty great guy. He makes a lot of cool.
He has a great channel. Check out The Fourth Age. It's a really good channel that breaks down SJW logic in comics and in general.
He's a huge fan of traditional comics, and really, from what I see, he is doing a perfect comic book with amalgamations of characters that are phenomenal looking and sound phenomenal. You should all go check it out when you're free. Do it.
Yeah.
All right.
2 things from the chat I have to comment on. Lucifer's film. I love Rajesh. And I'm a dildo playing a dildo, pretending to be another dildo. I love that.
You can never reference Tropic Thunder enough. I just never. I mean, oh God, Tom Cruise's character, Les Grossman, is got to be one of my favorite characters in all of film history because he's just too funny.
Jake, Another one I've got to get a hard copy of. Tropic Thunder. I do not have a hard copy of it. Thank you.
Oh yeah, that's something I need.
Stephanie Littlepage's comment 714. Jake D, check it out because that's actually. When you want to talk about proving Gina right, that person on Twitter who said that Gina needs to be locked up and put away until, quote, her mind is right. Yeah, I remember a particular state that used to do that with people whose minds weren't right politically.
It was in the 40s.
It was right through the 50s in the Soviet Union.
Oddly enough, I see that comment in the YouTube pop-out chat, but it didn't come through to StreamYard for me to highlight it. Interesting.
Yeah, I noticed that as well.
All right, guys. Well, hey, it is about time to get wrapped up. We are at the 2-hour mark, but I want to hear everybody's final thoughts about this interview and, maybe Gina in general and what her future is going to be looking like, at least in the near term, with the projects with Daily Wire. So let's get her started. V-Dub, give me your thoughts, my friend.
All right, man. I think the interview was telling. It was even knowing some of the stuff, it still was very, very telling. And I really I hope the best for Gina, because again, I think a lot is riding on it. This is the Hollywood system that has been for just far too long. Even before wokeness was a thing, there was definitely a cult-like mentality to who got into Hollywood. People made jokes in the chat earlier about the adrenochrome thing, but that's a real thing. And just to get out of the Hollywood disgusting bubble, outside of the spectrum where you have to have all these identity politics and the one of us logic and the there's just the mind numbing, you can't, you're not allowed to think the right, you have to think the right way. You can't not allow wrong think. Just to get out of that cultural bubble, to create the idea that there may be they admit it in the interview, they don't know what the hell they're going to do, right? But just the idea that, okay, there are projects that are developing that people are excited about outside of Hollywood. And I feel like Gina Carano, as much crap as she went through, you could tell it affected her. She was pushed out of a burning building, so to speak.
Yes, she was.
And because I think Hollywood is going down, and they've been doing this is a long time coming. And I think the independent, where I don't think Daily Wire on their own, but I think more projects like this will come up, and that is the positive takeaway for this. And that's the silver lining to the cloud that has been Gina Carano's life for the past however many months. But that's the positive, and she's a very strong person. That's pretty apparent as well.
There you go. All right, Fenrir, final thoughts.
Well, I believe that Gina's going to recover from this. She is strong. She actually has free will more than any of the assholes in Disney. And come on, she is literally the right person. I mean, look at what people are saying about her. Literally imprisoning her to alter her mind. I mean, anyone that is smart can see parallels between this and most of the shit from the 30s to the 50s to the 60s. I mean, she is literally the right individual in this conversation. And she doesn't even... Unlike most of these people who constantly go to the attack, she actually tries to talk like a sane human being, have a conversation, not to prove herself as right, but to at least calm the situation. She doesn't want war. She just wants peace. So I think she's going to make it out of this fine.
Fair enough, man. I like it. Draco, final thoughts, brother.
Thoughts. I stand with Gina Carano. I would also marry her if that was actually something real. Yes, I simp for Gina Carano too. But, yeah, I cannot say.
We need to rename the stream to Simpin' About Entertainment with Draco Argentis.
What you got to do, man, because I will. I mean, that's when it comes right down to it. The thing is that I joined up with Gary and Doomcock streams because I see these guys as brothers, not necessarily that we would essentially see in the same eyes or that I would actually be in the same position as them, but because of similar thoughts and similar cares about that. Now I feel about this with a whole extended collection of brothers and sisters through their communities, people that I would not have gotten in touch with if not for the problems that started many years ago and are beginning to culminate in things like what is going on with Gina now. And if anything, if I do not see Gina like someone that I could actually care about from that idea of simping for her, well, the thing is, I still would treat her as some kind of a sister because she is family in belief of how you treat people, of how you behave, of how you have a work ethic, of how you care about being upfront with people and honest. And I wish for her the best and all the opportunities that she can get working with Shapiro and his company. And then I lose words because I just want everything to turn out well, because she really is. She's a lightning rod and an example and a genuine fighter, full of fear but willing to fight anyway.
Fair enough, man. I agree. And final thoughts for me, man. It's I loved the person that I saw in this interview. Gina is so genuine, and she was very vulnerable overall, like from start to finish. And this was a wide-ranging interview. I mean, it talked about her childhood. It talked about her early days in. Good timing there, puppy dog. Hey, hang on one second.
The dog's a Gina Carano
take over for a second for me, would you?
Uh-oh.
Indeed.
Okay, apparently the dog's a Gina Carano fan. Yeah. But you know, I'll piggyback off of his point. She definitely is a genuine person, and I can agree. I do like the person that's there. That the person who gave that interview, and like a very vulnerable interview, as many people on this panel have pointed out. And
I think if I can add, tries to bring up canceling.
Yes,
how
Redshirt.
could you possibly think of canceling them? Go Redshirt.
Yeah, I believe it was Mike Tyson who said once that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Gina Carano got punched in the face and knocked down by Disney. She's gotten back up, and she's not giving up, which I really respect. And I hope that what she represents here is that first leak in a dam where the engineer goes and looks at it and goes, we have a problem. And the leak undermines the dam, and eventually the dam fails. I'm hoping that Gina is that first leak out of the face of the enormous dam that is Hollywood and cancel culture, and that others follow her.
Amen, brother. Amen. I love it. Yeah, that's absolutely. Everybody's conclusions, I think, are really, really great. So as we're wrapping up, one thing I would absolutely like to ask everybody is if you have not subscribed to the gentlemen on the panel, in particular Vigilante Williamson and Draco, who both put out Vigilante is a prolific content creator.
Really.
In particular, Fenrir is planning to start beginning to create his own content as well. Draco has some out there, and I'm sure some pokes at Draco might get him to make a few more videos. One of these days, the Redshirt will probably start putting out some original content.
Don't you want to hear that voice some more? Yeah, you do. I know you do.
That man has got a baritone made for this medium.
Gentlemen, can I say something, please?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'd like to ask the public watching to subscribe to my channel and to hit the bell, because in 3 weeks' time, we're going to have a great stream. Now that I know about Blazing Saddles, I promise that I will watch it and we will review it and continue with the great movie of Smoking. So, don't miss it. You don't want to miss it. Plus, if we hit 50 way before I have at least a second video, I'm going to be very, very happy. So please do it. Let's try to make it to 50.
Absolutely, guys. I mean, look at that. Fenrir is planning to put out content about Smokey and the Bandit, Blazing Saddles. We are running this guy through classic, amazing entertainment, and he's eating it up. He discovered Night Court in the past few weeks and has just been binging the hell out of it. This is a guy with good taste and good opinions.
Yeah, you guys are going to be there. That's my
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely have to.
All right, gentlemen.
It's not during a time at work where I'm on call on a machine buried in it. Yes, of course.
There you go.
All right.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody's contributions tonight. This was the most highly attended chat live stream on the channel that we have had thus far. We got up to 30 concurrent viewers at one point.
Wow.
And we are still over 20. I do appreciate each and every person who joined and contributed today. It is not just about the panel. It is absolutely about the chat. If you have made it this far, by God, please remember to like the stream And if we have not earned your subscriptions yet, I certainly hope that now we have. Thank you again, and we look forward to talking to you on the next stream. Everybody have a great, great night, and I'm sure many of us will catch a lot of y'all in the chat for the Inquisition.
Inquisition is coming on in 5 minutes plus wizard time, just to let y'all know on Harry's channel.
Never know.
Yes.
He'll arrive precisely when he needs to. But yeah, thank you all in the chat and on the panel. This has been a great panel, and cool about having that many concurrent viewers. Just
thank you,
really
chat.
Cool
Yeah. We need an achievement for the chat. They've been excellent.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'll have to cook one up. All right. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
All right.